These are two fighters where I've got a lot of their fights stored in my core memory banks. On the left, UFC welterweight and middleweight champion George St. Pierre. On the right, Glory welterweight champion Nicky the Natural Holsken. I'm George Hardwick, welcome to the channel. I'm 13-3 professional MMA fighter, and let's start to break down the Glory 23 open workout, which had some very interesting things, a place bar between these two legendary martial artists, and a lot of pad work. So let's put it back to the start. Let's see what we can pick up on, even from this place sparring. GSP always says, you only learn when it's playful. But there's the jab inside low kick. His classic combination, he extends his stance on the jab and then shortens it back up. There's the lead hand into low kick, and there's something very interesting. GSP does his signature back kick, and Nicky Holsken circles out. One of the best defenses, probably the best defense of a back kick, is to circle with it. And he keeps his hands in good position in case it's a wheel kick that comes up to the head. He was preparing to fight Raymond Daniels in this fight. Sorry about that. Raymond Daniels for this event. So he will have had that really well drilled into him. There's like a side kick from the close stance. It means it's a narrower target, throwing like a left side kick against another orthodox, but it can connect quite well against the hip. Probably putting it back too far for that, but interesting to see. GSP using a slightly funky defense, probably something you'd play with when it's your place sparring. Something very good about these place bars is you get a sense of where your shin is actually hitting. You don't want to just get in the habit of bashing your leg into people's knees or going 50-50 on people's shins and into people's elbows. You can actually get used to that in thick shin pads all the time. There's that double and tripling up off the lead hand, hooking off the jab, hook head, hook body into low kick. That's classic Dutch Hemmers style combinations. There's a left high kick into 1-2, really good. See how GSP kept his posture very well there into that 1-2 into high kick. There, he doesn't rock his head forward, he doesn't shoot his head over his lead knee, which is asking for the counter. Playing with the jab, and there's a spinning back fist, and then we're going on to some pads here. Establishing the jab, these are nice big pads here, so, you know, if you don't have a body pad, it's probably better to have thicker thigh pads. If you've got a body pad and leg pads, you can get away with some thinner thigh pads. There's jab hook into right low kick. When you're padding that, it seems like he's just got a more conditioned leg than me, and his knuckles are just bashing into his leg, but he's sound with that. I tend to squat so that my knuckles are just under my leg and I don't end up dead legging myself, middle knuckle going into my leg each time. There, that's a Dutch drill, or what Dwayne Ban Ludwig would call the Dutch drill. Very tongue-tied today. But jab hook cross into right low kick, stepping back, somewhat square. It helps that slightly square stance of the kickboxer. So he's stepping back with that right foot onto the floor so he can go right straight into left body kick. I'm pretty sure he did a left knee on that last one. Even the best in the world will still go slow and still groove their movements. This is something you can learn. You don't have to go 10 million miles an hour every single rep. Even the best in the world, even champions, will groove their movements, will do things slightly slower, and then speed it up. There, see how he's hitting the switch kick? Generally, you hit the switch kick when you finish with a lead hand, and you step off of a right hand. But he actually still did the switch kick off of his right hand there. So he finishes the combination with his right hand, and then hits a switch kick, ends up southpaw. But a lot of the time, if you hit that right hand, your hips are already turned over, so you're going to twist into it. And then if you hit it off a left hand, your left hand's already out, so you're going to switch into it. But the advantage of hitting it a right hand and then switching is you can delay the timing and you've got that extra second to look. This is classic Holsken here, block, left hook into low kick. He was probably one of the best in the world, one of the best ever in kickboxing to catch and shoot. Block with the left hand and then fire back the left hand same. If you're throwing a big wide right hook, chances are a really tight left hook is going to come inside. See how he puts his right hand all the way across his padman's face there when he's throwing the right knee. Not as much on those reps. And then that's something as well that you can do very well. Knee and stepping down into punches straight off the bat. Here we see GSP is going to hit the pads. So obviously, he's giving a little 52 blocks, elbow wavoo there. But obviously, this is probably the first time that this guy has ever held pads for GSP. So there's a little bit of a tuning process. You don't start with combinations. You just start with like basic jab, basic jab hook. So you'll probably see him start quite slow. The bow of respect, nice long jab. You can already see the difference. You can already see how much longer how much more width GSP has in his stance. GSP always had quite an extended stance and would still manage to push off his back leg, even with a toe turned out very well. And he's building up the same combination, the jab hook into right low kick, getting his stance back into right straight left body kick. See how GSP not switching after the right hand. He's just turning his hips over. A lot of the time, no switch after hitting a right hand or a backhand, and then there's a switch when you finish your combination with the lead hand. Much longer stance from GSP. Something that would have been very interesting is how GSP would have adapted to the calf kick in the calf kick era of MMA. I feel like the calf kick was a big adjustment to people getting better at boxing, towing in slightly more and using the jab slightly more dexterously. But if you're using that jab more, it means you're stepping more, it means you're planting more weight on that lead leg. You're probably trying to cover a little bit more distance with the step. Classic Dutch drill there. And see how this Padman works really well. He just gives him some jabs, even if he's not throwing back crazy. After these combinations, he just steps in, he gives him some jabs, he makes him move. He's not a lamppost or lighthouse. There's a lot of time we call it like a lamppost Padman. Someone who stands in spot, you just move around him. You know, sometimes that's good for combinations, but you want a Padman like this, even in a tight space. He throws his combination, then he just touches his guard, makes him parry, makes him move. It's just more realistic. You don't want someone to get in the habit of switching off. You might not realize it. The rep isn't finished when that kick lands on the leg or the pad, when that punch lands on the pad. It's finished when you're back in your stance and you're defensively responsible. You can either punch again or move. There's that right knee. GSP reaching across to the right shoulder. So somewhere there, he's putting his hand on the right shoulder. If you watch like a Jonathan Haggerty hitting pads, he'll put his right hand on his training partner's face. Obviously, GSP probably being respectful here, not wanting to disrespect the padman and put a big sweaty boxing glove palm on the side of his face. But if you watch Jonathan Haggerty hitting pads, a lot of time he's throwing that knee. He's got his hand over his training partner's eyes. Now, this is the Nicky Holsken classic, hitting the body hook. Hard to pad a body hook with just big tie pads. You can double pad it quite well with two focus mitts, or best is just having a big body pad. But you can really focus on driving it up. You know, the padman can hold it to his body or slightly out, and then Nicky Holsken switches it to a left uppercut. If you've landed a left body hook a lot, a left uppercut is a really good shout, because as people defend that left body hook, the same preliminary motion looks very similar, and then the uppercut slips through that gap as people are defending that body hook. The elbow peeks down into the side, makes a gap for the left uppercut. Nicky Holsken, one of the best lead hands in kickboxing history, one of the best guys ever for same side combinations, and he's just using that to step into a right body kick. See, Nicky Holsken, he was turning his hips, but he wouldn't turn his hips quite as much as many of the ties. It looks a little bit stiffer, but what it does is it comes at a 45-degree angle and it allows him to step down into punches much quicker than if he turned right on the toes and his hips had turned the other way. So imagine like an Anthony Pettis, or if you watch any ties like a Same, their hips turn completely over, they're on the ball of the foot, and it's almost like their toes are facing behind them and the heel is pointing towards the target. Whereas here, it's not as full a turn, but he can step down a little bit more square and he's in a really good position to throw punches straight away. Padman moving around, even on single kicks. Good idea for the Padman to move around. There's left kick, left knee. Oftentimes after a kick, there's a crash in of range, so it's good to be able to have that dexterity, throw that knee after. See how he doesn't land his left foot into orthodox stance? He actually pulls it back southpaw if he knows he's going to knee after. And there's some really Dutch style striking, those knees up the middle into hooks and low kicks. Overeem special. A little bit of a move around. So obviously they're not going at a ridiculous pace here. They're not trying to burn him out, because this is an open workout. He's probably cutting weight and doing all sorts, and he wants to stay sharp for the fight. He's not trying to gas himself. There's GSP using the same left uppercut. As you can see, not as loose. He kind of brings his head a little bit closer to the target than Holsken would. Holsken a little bit more elastic in the arms than GSP. GSP comes a little bit more onto his lead leg, which would make him more punishable for the low kick. See how GSP's weight stays more on his lead leg as he throws each shot, whereas Holsken would keep a bit more weight on the back leg. But generally, we didn't see GSP do too many of these lead hand combinations unless it was like a jab hook or a double jab. There, the Padman's making him move. We can see GSP bring his feet together as he's moving laterally and then extend his stance back out to, cover range linearly into these straight strikes. There's a switch kick. showing the lead hand just a little bit before the switch kick, getting a little bit of instruction there. So he's hunkered down a little bit to move into that switch kick. GSP's hips probably turning over slightly more, and his leg is a little bit slower getting back. That's probably because in MMA, and especially with GSP, you'd be kicking at slightly longer ranges, and you'd have a little bit more time to afford getting back down. Whereas if you're fighting in kickboxing, the moment that foot's off the floor, people are probably in that close range already. Unless, yeah, especially when you fight like Nicky Holsken and you're in close range all the time. So you're going to bring that foot down a lot quicker if, obviously it's his main sport, but you're probably going to bring that foot down a lot quicker because kicking into combinations much more common in kickboxing. Bring that right kick across. See how loads his weight on his back leg to fire the right kick over. Really, really, really good kicking technique. Obviously, it goes without saying. See how he brings his knee through the target. A lot of MMA fighters keep a perfectly straight leg as they kick. I was talking about the TJ Dillashaw video. A lot of MMA fighters, the leg will stay completely straight when they kick, and then it'll be completely straight on impact. Whereas you see a lot of Thais, what they'll do is they'll drive the knee past the pad. We're actually seeing GSP do that quite a bit. The knee goes past the pad, so the kick is still traveling through the target on the moment of impact, and it gets the hips to turn over just a little bit quicker. Boom. And then again, stepping down into that Dutch drill style kick, chambering back, cadence striking off of opposite sides, loading that hip really well. Right hand across to step in with the knee, obviously practicing countering. And there you can see the padman actually showing him to put his hand on the face there. Last little detail. I've been George Hardwick. If you like the stuff, check out the Patreon, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you do with Heinz Vindaloo beans.